Alrighty, so I am doing this for the first time. This is totally unscripted. It's just me doing random stuff for some docs. I kind of got the idea for doing this from going to the Godot Reddit, and there's this post about, for the Godot Con stream is ongoing, and this guy, Phoenix Gaming, kind of a cool guy. I was chatting with him, going back and forth, and eventually he was suggesting that we needed some more documentation stuff. Where to put it? Here we go. And I was like, you know what? We can add some more documentation. And then I was looking in, and actually, there's actually already a whole lot of documentation about how to go through the process of working on docs. There's actually a whole like contributing section um, that has a whole bunch of different things. Like it goes through the entire pull request workflow and how to, what commands to use and how to install Git and create your branch and update it and all this kind of stuff. But this kind of stuff might be hard for people to follow. So, because it's, command line stuff, not everyone's really comfortable with that. So I figured, you know what, maybe I can create a video that kind of walks through all this stuff. So that's where the idea for this came. So thank Phoenix Gaming for inspiring this. Okay, so I was browsing through some of the open issues in the Godot docs, and I just came across this one, expand variant class doc entry, also opened by Phoenix Gaming, coincidentally enough. And it actually seemed like something that I felt like I could do pretty well. And it's, relatively simple-ish. And so he basically says, currently variant class states that it is the most important data type in Godot, but then has 3 lines long of a description that tells me nothing about it. So for the most important data type, it's rather bare bones. I have still no idea what it is, why would I ever want to use it, or even how to use it. So I think that's great. That's actually really a fantastic description of what the problem is. So if I actually go in here to the variant, this is so we're inside of the classes, class underscore variant HTML, right, in the latest version of the docs. So this is all there is about the variant class. And it just says, hey, it's the most important type, and here's some info about it, and then what it can do. But there's not really a lot of other explanation given. And that, for programmers, who have read through some of the engine documentation and stuff, I mean, it kind of makes sense. But for someone who doesn't really know anything about Godot's internals, they're like, what the heck is this? Which totally makes sense. So I'm still running. Yeah, great. Okay. So I'm going to dive in here. So this is the introduction to Godot development. So the people who are like actually looking into building Godot source code and stuff like that, and they read the documentation in the development section for the engine, they see this architectural diagram, and you see variant is like at the very top. Like everyone's looking at variant, and it plugs into everything else. So it's important because it's in the core and it's like that. But you're still kind of left up in the air, like, how do I do this? What's going on? So we're going to dive into the process of updating the documentation. Also kind of poor quality. This is the actual engine development variant class. Like there's a whole subsection just for talking about the variant, and it's basically the same thing as what's in the API docs. We could probably do more there, but I'm going to go ahead and update the API documentation because that'll be the stuff that's actually inside the engine, and I think that that's probably more important to update with a better description for that reason. So, why don't I'll probably also update this later on or something, but so let's get started. So the very first step in developing stuff is you need to have Git installed, right? You need to have Git in order to make any sort of changes to Godot on GitHub, right? So Git, download, if I just Google it, I'll come to this, gitscm.com. So I click on here to download. I'll click on Windows, whatever. I'll hit my download button, and it'll download the MSI or whatever it is. And you go through the whole GUI process, and I might actually have Yeah, so we end up getting an executable, and I would run that and do the whole Git installation, and then you end up with Git on your machine. So you have to have Git installed. That's the most important bit. The next bit is if you want to just kind of get going with something easily, we're going to also install GitHub for desktop. I don't even think I have this installed, so that'll be convenient, I guess, for the purpose of this tutorial. So I can kind of show through the process of installing this. Now, you don't really need to have this. You need to have some kind of GUI editor if you're not wanting to use the command line, if you're not familiar with it. So GitHub for desktop is a good option for using GitHub. There's also a really great one, which is Git Kraken. And actually, ultimately, if you were going to pick one, I would recommend Git Kraken. It's just going to be a little easier for me to log in with this, I think. Let's see. And get my authentication code, because I have two-factor authentication like a boss. Okay. Configure Git, name nations dev, that's my email for business, yes, continue, fix all the things, example commit, nice, okay. No, I do not want to report on my usage stats. Thank you very much. You're awesome, Microsoft. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I have, no, I want to see Godot. Godot. Here we go. Clone nations Godot. Well, actually, I don't really need to. I already have this. Create clone. Add an existing repository. All right. So yes, I know. Oh no, you can view my whole operating system. Oh no, boohoo. Okay. This is it. All right. Select. So here's where I have my Godot repo. So add repository. No local changes. Okay. So we are all set up right now. So I now have this wonderful GUI that is telling me about the current state of my installation. Now, I just realized I kind of skipped over the whole process of installing Godot, if you wanted to do it that way too. File, let's see, new repository. Let's make this is going to be Godot 2. And, well, no. Does that work? How can I want to install, add, here we go, clone repository. So now, let's see, I'm going to create a new, man, I don't even know how to do this from this other thing. Let's see, we'll just say Godot 2. We're just going to make this folder here, and this is where we're going to put it. And I'm going to say, I want will nations dev Godot. Clone. We'll see if that works. Cloning into receiving objects. Okay, yeah, so it goes through the whole process of installing it. And what just happened? Other Godot, there's the other one. Okay, so it's cloning Godot. There you go. Man, this is going to be really good. Well, okay, so that's the workflow for creating a repository locally. Oh, and man, I am not doing this right, am I? Because now I'm like, oh, you don't even have a repository set up. Okay, so first step is, man, sorry guys, really sorry about that. So you go in here and you actually code to log out, whatever. You have to go to GitHub and create account. GitHub create account, and they even have like a whole process for like how do you do this, and they have a whole step-by-step system. So just go to GitHub and kind of go through the steps, read the information, verify your email address, configure two-factor authentication, add a bio, and then once you have done all of that and you actually have a GitHub account, then you can click this little plus up here, and actually no, you don't even have to do that. You go to Godot Engine Godot, whatever. So you find this repository, Godot Engine /Godot, and then here, if you already have an account, then you'll be able to hit this fork button, and then it'll be like, oh, where do you want to install this? And you'll click your account, or actually it might, since you only have your account and no other accounts or organizations or anything, it might just install it in your account immediately. So you hit this fork button, and what this is going to do is it's going to take this entire repository of code and it's going to copy it over to whatever your username location is. And so now you're going to have your own copy of this repository, right? And it'll say that it's forked from Godot engine Godot. So you have your own dedicated copy. And see, I can go in here and I've created a whole bunch of custom stuff. Like I have a whole lot of branches for like work in progress features that I've worked on and stuff, right? And some of those are present in the original Godot repository. Like they've got, oh wow, not even, okay, so they have a couple of branches. You can see that I like to experiment with ideas. So yeah. And I haven't really cleaned up my repo in some time, so yay, there's that. So, so you create a GitHub account, you go to the Godot engine / Godot place, you fork it, and that gives you your own copy of it. And now the goal is that you want to take your own copy of Godot and clone it to your computer. Okay? I don't even think I did that properly when I was in here. Yeah, I don't want to do this. Wow. All right. Yeah. See this other thing? Like this is, I think I actually fetched Godot engine / Godot. I don't want to do that. You want to make sure this is the mistake you do not want to make. You want to get your copy of the Godot repository, not the original one. And the reason you want to do that is because when you're on your machine and you make changes, you want to actually, if it's your repository, then you will have write permissions to change content on that repository, right? If it's the official Godot engine Godot one, then unless you're a core contributor who has been granted special write privileges to write new data to the repository, then you won't be able to do anything. I'm not even a core contributor. I can't do that. So you have to go through pull requests, and the way you do that is by forking the engine, pushing your own changes to your own fork, and then submitting those changes through a pull request from your fork to the original. So yours over here, theirs, over there. Sorry, my my phone is going off. Gotta address a text really quickly. Okay, gotcha. Alrighty. So, yeah, that was kind of long. So, do I have any comments in here? Yeah, no, nothing. All right. So, I am going brain dead here for a second. Okay, so I'm in GitHub Godot. All right, so let's just assume that I have already cloned it and I've opened it in my GitHub for desktop thing, right? So now I have the repository locally, and I want to open this repository. So I open my VS Codium, which, if you don't already know, is the actually open source licensed version of Visual Studio Code, because Microsoft actually adds like telemetry tracking and usage data tracking, and they put their own logo on it. And it has a closed source license on it when they distribute it from their website. So if you want the actual open source one, go to VS Codium and download one of the releases on GitHub. So anyway, this is Godot Docs. I don't want Godot Docs. I want open folder, Godot. Right. So we have our source code, and this is the engine source code, and I just opened it in VS Code. And now I want to find this folder right here, doc. So I open doc, I open classes, and holy crap, there's a ton of classes. So we keep on going all the way down to variant, which is the thing that we want to modify. And we have this XML file. All right, this is like one of the simplest possible classes you could view in this, because there's nothing but descriptions here. And the reason that there is nothing but descriptions is because this class doesn't have any methods or any constants that are exposed as part of it. It actually does have constants in the engine, but they're converted into global constants in the scripting API. This is kind of what it looks like, right? We just went to the documentation inside of the engine. They're all XML files, and we just popped open this file. So this top part, just going over a bit of XML syntax, this top part is not important. It just tells us, kind of some information about the XML file and how it's formatted, and that's important for things that are parsing and analyzing the content of the XML file. And then we get to this. So if you've ever seen HTML, or maybe if you haven't, we basically have these tags, right? This class tag, which has the opening angled brace and the closing angled brace. And then there's a certain term that's at the start of the tag. And this tells us what type of, quote, XML element it is, right? So this is an element, this is an element, this is another element. And so this whole section is one brief description element. And then you have these XML attributes, which are key value pairs that kind of provide additional data within the element that tell us some like type information and stuff, right? And the beauty of XML is that all this information is kind of user defined. Like the ones who are parsing this XML file are defining a particular structure that will be used for all of the XML content. So class is just a type of element that can show up, and methods are, and blah, blah, right? And so I think in the official specification, you can do things like, okay, well, now I have a method, and I'm going to, do stuff inside of this. And yeah, and you just like add content and then, stuff, whatever. So this is XML, and what we need to do is we're gonna improve the description, and then another thing we're gonna do is we're gonna try and flesh out some of this information. Now, the methods and the constants are not things we're going to modify, and the reason for that is because the XML files are actually in part generated by Godot. So whenever they modify the scripting API inside of the engine, whenever they change the source code. Let's see if I can find a good example. So if I go into scene 2D, and where's like Sprite or something? Sprite. So it's relatable. Sprite.cpp. Okay. So I go to sprite.cpp, and I'm going to search for the bind methods. Oh, whoops, bind. Yeah, bind methods. There we go. So this function here, oh man, my thing is going way too far. So bind methods. This is a method that every single Godot object type defines. And what it does is it says like, hey, I'm going to bind my setTexture method, which takes in a texture, a parameter that is named texture, and I'm going to map it to the sprite's setTexture method, right? So it actually has a C++ method, and I am now defining setTexture to be the name of a method in the scripting API registered to the class DB. I'm binding this method, and the method that I'm binding is this setTexture. And you do the same thing with getTexture, and this is how they kind of make all the different things, right? And you'll notice that a lot of this stuff is identical, which actually goes to show why GDScript's method names are like so closely related to the engine source code method names most of the time. So actually flip-flopping between engine code and script code isn't that complex, because it's oftentimes very similar. But anyway, so we go down, and you can see like add property, and they define a texture, and they map it to setTexture and getTexture. And that's the reason that you can just use texture as a property, because it's actually calling these setter and getter methods, right? So anyway, when they modify this method and they add script bindings or remove script bindings, all this stuff, and they add and remove properties, and they can also like add constants and stuff that's not in here though, and signals, right? then we end up coming back to this file, and when they change things and they say, okay, Godot, generate XML stuff, it'll actually like fill in methods and constants and create like a signals section that actually has all that information. So actually see if I can see Sprite XML, right? So we come in here and it's got the properties all listed in here. Texture, see, there it is. And we have signals that we defined. They're here. No constants because we didn't see that in the class. But like you can actually see all these different things. I don't even know why. What is with this methods section? The reason the methods section is so short is because all of the methods that exist are converted into properties. So these are the only two methods that are exposed to the scripting API that are not part of the properties setters and getters. That's the reason that they show up here like this. So yeah, and then the other great thing is it has a little tutorials section. That's something that we're actually going to use, right? So in variant.xml, it has a tutorial section. And just for the sake of having it, I'm going to reference the wrong thing here. Someone? Nope, no one. Okay. We're actually going to reference this link, right? And I'm just like, I mean, you might not get any new information from. You might not actually get any new information from reading this at the moment, but if it's ever updated in the future, at least you'll know that this location in the docs exists, and you would be able to get to it from the link in the API documentation. But I actually don't specifically know how to add that stuff to the API docs. So like any good person, I'm going to look in the documentation to see how I might do that. Right? So if we go into contributing, we have contribute to the class reference under the community section. So I scroll down and they have at the bottom how to edit the class XML, and they kind of walk through all the different sections and like what you can do with it, and they have an example. And then they have this stuff, right? So this is like custom things that you can add, and that's really cool. And they do not have an example of the tutorials section. Great. Okay, well, I happily just so happen to know of a class that does have a tutorial section, which is input event. So if I go into input event, it has a tutorial section, and you can click on this, for example, input event, and it'll take me to the docs page that talks about input event and how the whole input system works, and where things move around and how they change. So I want to know how it creates this tutorial. Well, if I want to know how to do something and the docs isn't properly explaining how to do it yet, that's another thing we could probably change. Then I need to figure out how it's doing it. And I can figure that out by looking at the input event documentation, right? So I'm back in my XML files. I'm going to scroll all the way up to input event. Here we go. So input event, add that. And if I go to tutorials, it just has this link tag. All right, so it creates a link and it adds the link inlined right there. That is awesome. I don't know how it's configuring the actual like text that shows up, so that's interesting. Alrighty, well, why am I even doing that? I don't need to do that. Just go to variant. So I'm in tutorials here. I'm gonna say link. Why didn't it autocomplete? Okay, whatever. And gonna do it. I forgot if I actually copied it. There we go. Development CVP variant class. Yeah. And here. There we go. So now I have added this link, right? So just for the sake of showing the workflow, right? So I have now changed the source code. And is Godot going to notice my changes? Yes, it is. Here we go. So, right? I'm just gonna kind of wipe out this whole thing. Gosh, man, that is ugly. All right. Oh man, so I want to go to my GitHub stuff. So GitHub, didn't I call it like Godot 2? Where did I even put it? Is it in, oh, whoops, I put it in, wow, I created it inside of my Godot repository. Jeez, how much of an idiot. All right, well, I'll just let that delete. Jeez. Okay. All right, so you'll notice, so I flipped over to GitHub for desktop, right? And it actually detected that I made changes to my code. And the reason it did that is because I'm addressing my Godot repository. It's referencing this folder, and the changes that I made are in doc classes and in here, right? So I made changes to files that are inside of the repository's root directory. And because of that, Git detected those changes and actually shows me like line by line, oh, you added this stuff, right? So now I'm going to say, okay, so one problem is I want, before I actually add any of this content, I forgot to do this again. Man, I'm really doing this out of order, so it's bad. I'll have to kind of do a better workflow of it. But what you want to do is you want to check out the master branch, bring my changes to master, switch branch. Oh, yeah. So that should be right. Okay. So I'm on master, and now what I want to do is I actually want to check out a new branch. So I'm going to do like a variant docs, right? Create branch. And I want to bring my changes. All right. So unfortunately, I had already made changes, so it was a little confusing to do that. But wow, man, I've actually, so what did I actually do here, right? So when you first clone the Godot repository, you are likely going to be on the master branch. So the branches are just different tracks of development. And so there's like a mainline branch, which is the master branch, and everyone who creates stuff, they'll branch off of master, create their own branch, add features to that, and then whenever they're ready, they will merge that stuff into the master branch with a pull request. Okay, so I kind of just messed this whole process up because I, at the time, already had this inheritance cache branch, and I was making my documentation changes in there, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to, I have other changes in my inheritance cache branch. I don't want to do that stuff there. So what I'm going to do, or rather what I did, is I said, okay, I want to go back to the master branch and bring my changes over with me that I had already done, that I hadn't committed yet. And if you do commit them, then there are probably ways that you could I can do another video tutorial on like doing that. You can find all kinds of tutorials about Git and how to work with it. But for this anyway, all I did was I hadn't made my changes yet, so I switched to the master branch, and then I branched off of master to create my variant docs branch. And at every step of the way, I brought my changes with me so that they would travel and actually be ready. So I now have my variant docs branch for the Godot repository, and I've got my variant XML changes. And I'm probably going to do a lot more than just this. So let's just say, okay, update variant XML. So I'm going to say add variant, I'll just say, I guess tutorial link. I mean, it's not exactly a tutorial, but whatever. And then just going to commit to the variant docs. And now if I check my history here, right, so there's a whole bunch of people that have been committing to the stuff, and I just added my own like single line change to this XML file. So now let's say, you know what, I'm completely done. I don't need anything that I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this branch. And it hasn't been published to the remote yet. So what this means is that my fork of Godot that exists over here, right? Will nations dev Godot. So my fork does not yet have the variant docs branch, right? It doesn't show up in here. And the reason for that is because I've only created it locally on my machine, right? I just used this tool, this GUI tool, to create the branch on my machine, but the GitHub servers that actually have my fork do not have a copy of these changes yet. So I can publish this branch, and it says pushing to origin, right? Fetching origin, refreshing, fetch origin. Okay, so origin is my fork, right? So when you clone a repository, when you copy and pull down an initial repository to your computer, it automatically sets the URL that you pulled the data down from as the quote origin of the code, right? It's where it originally came from. It is its origin. And so that just, when we want to say, oh, I want to push things to the origin or pull things from the origin, or maybe I have a mismatch between my local stuff and the origin, right? I'm talking about my fork. I'm talking about, username / Godot. And now that I've just pushed it, I just did this publishing operation, which is actually a git push operation. It actually shows up in GitHub and notifies me, hey, you recently pushed this. Do you want to compare and do a pull request? So if I click this button, so it says, okay, you want to compare variant docs to the master of Godot Engine Godot, right? And this is what we want to do. This is the thing that we are preparing to do, okay? And you can see it says one commit, one file changed, one contributor, and it has my little commit listed there. Add variant tutorial link. We can see the link added there. So if you wanted to contribute to Godot, all you'd have to do is hit this create pull request button. Now I plan on doing a lot more than just what we've done so far. But you can see it's actually like, I'm trying to think of going through what this whole process was, right? So I started out by just going to GitHub and creating an account, and then I went to the Godot Engine repository and I clicked the fork button. That created for me my own repository. Geez, it's not gonna go back maybe? Yeah, here we go. So that created for me my Will Nations Dev Godot. And then I installed GitHub for Desktop. And I was like, okay, I want to clone a repository. And since I've already logged in, it knows my account, right? And so I just had to say, okay, Godot. And I clicked it and I, specified the location and I hit clone and it cloned it to my computer, right? And then I was like, you know what? I want to actually modify source code files now. So I went to VS Code and I opened, did file, open folder, and I specified my Godot directory, which took me here. Then for API documentation, which is stored inside of the Godot source code, you go to doc and then classes, and then you find the class that you actually want to modify. And so you have this XML file, and you can read more about how to modify XML documentation online. I'm sure you can just look up XML docs and get, or whoops, no, not comments. Well, that's bad. I don't know. How to XML, right? I'm sure there's going to be XML tutorials. W3 Schools is awesome. Look at this stuff, right? So you can read about XML and kind of how it works. You can see like this is food and name, price, right? So you can store all kinds of data, and people have like their own defined schemas by which they do this. Godot has its own schema, which is clarified a bit in the contribute to updating the class reference, which is, here we go, contributing, contribute to the class reference, and then how to edit class XML. And you get to this section and you can just kind of see what they do here. And if you ever see something in the docs that you're like, oh, I want to know how they did that, and you don't know how to do it and you can't find out how to do it, all you gotta do is find that class in VS Code and look at what it's doing and how it works. And I'm like, oh, wow, look at this thing. It's got a member, which is a property, or Do I have constants or something? I don't know. Yeah, this one seems to have a lot of procedurally generated names, you can see. Um, animation tree. Here we go. Here's some constants, right? So you can see some of the integer constants that are defined for this thing, animation, process physics. So you have all these things which get generated, and the stuff you actually modify is brief description, the full description, tutorial. You can add or remove tutorial links, right? So these are kind of the three things that you would really fill out, and then descriptions for methods and properties. Right, so these are things that you might fill out. You might put more info in here. Wow. Animation tree player probably is updated. Yeah, because animation tree is deprecated. That's why it's blank probably. This is where you're actually going to see info on animation and stuff. Bad example, but anyway, so we went through that process and I modified the files, and then when I was done with my changes, I went back to GitHub for desktop and it detected that I had made changes. And then I said, okay, so here's the summary of what I want to do, and here's what changes I made, and I can give a more in-depth description if I want to. I usually just do a really short summary, and that should be sufficient. And then you commit to your local code, and so initially, yeah. So I also skipped. We made sure to go to a branch, and we checked out a new branch from the master branch. That's you always want to do it. You want to go to the master branch and check it out. And then once you're in master, then you want to hit new branch and you want to go there, right? And then once you're in your new branch, then you start making your changes. And if you mess up and you're like, "Oh no," you can always switch to another branch and bring your changes with you, so it's not the end of the world or anything. And if you ever have questions about how to use Git and how to do stuff with it, there's tons of resources online, and people on like Discord and the documentation channel there will be like more than happy to help you out with it, right? So if I go to Godot engine, blah 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 blah. Come on. There's the documentation channel, right? These guys will be more than happy to help you out with any stuff that you're trying to figure out and trying to figure out how to do things. And there's tons of resources online. In fact, my favorite resource is try GitHub.io. Yeah, this is it. Try.github.io. It has some of the best documentation and tutorials for Git. Like here's the handbook and cheat sheets. And then it actually has like learn Git branching and visualizing Git, and you can actually like execute Git commands, and it'll visually show you what is happening throughout the whole process. Wow. Okay, I just want to do this. Okay. Well, yeah, it's Okay. Anyway, I'm skipping through things, so it's not really easy to do it. But if you actually read it and went through it, it'd be great. Yes, thank you. Hide goal. Okay, so yeah, just type in git commit. Git commit. Bam. And now you see it. Oh man, it responded and created a new commit called C2 from C1, C0. And master is currently pointed at this latest commit, right? And you can do, yeah. So it's a whole like visual tutorial system for learning Git. It's amazing. You should try this out. So yeah, that's try.github.io. And then I think that's pretty much it. Or as far as like the complexities go, you just publish your branch to your fork, and then once you've done that, you go to your fork and you go here, and it'll be like, oh, you published. And if you can't find it and you want to open a pull request anyway, then you just say new pull request. And then you just say, okay, I want to compare my, Will Nations. So I have my variant docs, and I want to compare my variant docs to Godot Engine Master. And it's going to show me what all the changes are, and you're basically back where you were if you had just clicked the button in the first place, right? And then you create the pull request, and you're good to go. If they come back with requesting changes, That might be where things can get a bit more complicated. So let's see if okay. So I'm going to say more information. Informations, yes, that is exactly what we're going to do. Okay. So now I've made this change, right? And here's more variant info. Commit. Okay. So now I have this history, and I have two different commits that are present, right? And Godot, whenever you submit a pull request, you need to have your commits all merged together to be a single commit. So they don't, it looks really awkward in the Git history on GitHub when you have multiple commits for a single pull request. So they like to merge these all together. Now I actually don't know how to do this in in the GitHub for desktop thing, so I'm gonna be exploring it with you, right? So let's assume that I've already pushed to origin, and I have this change now in my remote. And so if I go to my remote and I refresh this, it's now gonna have both of my changes present, because it actually shows the different commits that are present. But the problem is we don't want this to be two separate commits, we want it to be one commit, all right? So in this case, what I want to do, so the actual term for how to solve this problem is to do an interactive rebase. You want to execute an interactive rebase back to the stuff. I don't even know if you can do it from here. Changes, repository list. Yikes. Oh, wait. Rebase. No. Okay, well, I guess we're going to get a quick rundown on how to solve this problem in a command line, unfortunately. I was hoping to avoid having to use a command line, but yeah, I guess that's just how it is. I can tell you for a fact that Git Kraken is able to do this, because I've seen people do it before. So if you go to Git Kraken, right, okay, so I'm going to download now, 64-bit. We're going to see if we can make this work entirely with a GUI. No command line whatsoever. Come on. Okay. I want to install Git Kraken. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. I'm actually quite surprised my dogs haven't like suddenly barked at some point. One of them growled for a second, but it's good for a live stream to not have something like that happen. So sign in with GitHub. Authorizing. Continue authorization. Public SSH keys, yes. Repositories. Personal user data. Email address only, yes. Okay, so authorize access soft. And bam, congratulations, connection was successful. They're good to go. So now if I go here, default name, what? Oh, select an avatar. Okay, I don't know. I am not familiar with this stuff. This is just gonna be default profile, willownationsdev@gmail.com. Oh, okay. Please don't flood me with emails. I really don't want that. Keep my git config update. Yes, sure. Okay. I don't want to upgrade my account. You should actually check out the pricing on this, because it is kind of particular about what you can and can't use Git Kraken for. I think for like really small teams on private projects, you might be able to do it. I'm not really sure. I know for a fact that you can use it for open source stuff. Or at least the last I recall. So new tab. Okay, I want to open a repo, right? So browse to my GitHub Godot Man, all right. Yeah, see, this looks so pretty. This is amazing. You guys should totally get Gitkraken because it's really convenient. All right. So here's master, right? And I have my own branch, which has 2 commits. Now, I know that it's possible. Interactive rebase, 1 children. Cancel a rebase. I want to do interactive rebase. I want to interactive rebase both of these. Do I say from here, interactive rebase? Onto here. Yes, this is what I want. Okay. So apparently you pick the one just beyond what you want and you hit interactive rebase. Okay, so here I have pick as the 2 options here. And this is what I don't want to have to do, right? I don't want to pick both of these. So okay, so what are we doing here? We're doing an interactive rebase. So what is rebasing, right? So if I have one branch here and one branch here, and we previously talked about how okay, so I'm on this branch and I branch off, and then I add some commits, and you can merge them in and continue on, right? So that's one path to getting your stuff on that code. And we've branched off a specific point in history, right? So there was, let's see if I cancel rebase. So there's this commit from who submitted this? Tomás Chabora, right? Okay, so Remy merged a pull request from Kobewi. That was it. All right, so we merged a pull request from Kobewi, and we then branched off of the master branch where this commit occurred, and we added R2. Well, what if changes happen over here, and we need to, what if we actually branched off down here, and then they added these other things, and we, rather than having our commits occur in history right at this point, we wanted them to occur with the latest stuff, right? What we would need to do is we have our own branch with its own changes, but its base would be at the original point from which we branched off. So what we want to do is rebase, where we pluck the base out of this point in history and put it back at this commit at the top. So when you say, oh, I want to rebase onto the master branch, master refers to the latest commit in the branch. And so I'm saying I want to rebase my commits, my branch, onto the tip of this branch. So now my commits will be at this point in history moving forward, rather than back here where I initially branched off, right? In this example, I didn't actually do that, but so we're doing the same thing here where we want to interactively rebase. So rebasing is really just saying, yes, you're reattaching the base here, but what you're actually doing is saying, well, I committed some changes here and I committed some changes here from this point. Now I want to reapply this step-by-step process of committing changes, but starting from a different point in history. So you are still you're basically recommitting with an entirely new commit hash. Like, these commits have different IDs. You are recommitting the changes to an entirely different location. And because you are doing this step-by-step process of committing things, that's what the rebase is. If you want to change how things get applied to another point in history, which is what we want to do here, we want to change how these commits get applied to this history, then you can do it interactively. So here I am picking both of the commits. I want them both to be applied. But in fact, I don't really want to do that. I want to squash this commit into the previous one. I want to squash it. So all the changes associated with this commit get merged into this commit. And then you'll notice how Gitkraken conveniently automatically changes it to be a reword. And what this means is I want to change the text associated with my commit message, right? So if I start this rebasing, okay, and it never gave me a chance to change things. Oh wait, maybe up here? Yeah, so add variant, more variant. Okay, yeah, so this is what it did. So it took my add variant tutorial link, which was the original one, and when I merged in the thing, it appended that message to this one, right? And so, I'm actually satisfied with that. Well, no, actually I'm not. So I want to say I didn't just add variant tutorial link. Updated, in summary, I updated the variant docs with info tutorial or info and tutorials, right? And now I don't even want to have this information anymore, right? So now this is just completely empty. I have a nice succinct summary of all the changes that were made, and I really feel the need to go into more detail. So I'm going to say update message. And so now I have this branch, and I have not done this in Git Kraken before, so this is kind of interesting. So where did these come from? Like, it seems like it created a whole new branch for me or something. Usually when you do an interactive rebase, it actually like gets rid of these two branches. And did I create another branch somehow in the Well, no, it says variant docs. I'm still there. Is there like a rebase continue operation? That's what it should be. Or like I finish the changes and I'm ready to proceed. Okay, well, just for demonstration purposes, cmd, cd source, GitHub, Godot, Git status. Oh, whoops, Git status. Yeah, it seems like it completely didn't. Wait, Git branch. What I have? Variant docs, which is still there. It seems like it hasn't actually done it yet. Git log. Oh, no, it did. Updated variant docs with info, toots. Merge pull request. Why does it say 2 different commits each respectively? That's just really weird. Okay, well, whatever. If you, all right, let me, I'm just kind of for demonstration purposes, more. So git add and git commit with -m for my message, right? So add is where I'm adding my changes to the working copy, and commit -m is what lets me add a message to it. And now if I say log, which shows me the set of changes again, I can actually see that I have 2 commits, and I can see that reflected in Git Kraken right now. So right here, it'll show me my 2 things. I don't get what. Oh, now I get it. Wow. Okay, I'm an idiot. The reason I was seeing that. Okay. I'm just gonna. Well, here's another good example of a Git rebase. So you know what? I completely don't want these changes that I just made. So I'm gonna do git rebase -i head -1, which kind of just says I want to go back to one before and reapply commits. And in this case, you know what? I just don't want this. I'm gonna drop it. I do not want this commit at all. So this is the text-based version of it. So it would give you like a big list of all your commits and what command you want to have. And you would just specify what you want. And in this case, I just don't want that particular commit. And it's successfully rebased, and I do git log. And I can see that I just have this. And I come back here, and it's gotten rid of my thing, right? So you can do this stuff in Git on the command line or in Git Kraken. Git Kraken's actually like super, super nice because it's a full GUI that does it all. So if you aren't comfortable on the command line, you can try this stuff out. But okay, so the reason that I was seeing kind of a duplication, I realize now, is that this is local to my computer and this is my origin because earlier on I pushed my changes. I was back on here and I did like a push, And that was the reason that those things are on the remote and they're showing up here. So what I want to do now, I was planning for this, right? I want to push my changes to my remote. But if I just try to do that, it's saying it's behind origin variant docs. So my local refs heads variant docs, right? So the references that I have in my project, the heads of the branches out of those references, and the variant docs branch, right? So this is a pointer that points to this commit because it's the most recent commit, i.e. the head out of the list of commits, the head versus the tail. It is the head commit on this branch of commits, which is referred to as variant docs. So it's a big pointer to this commit. And this is behind refs remotes, right? So the different remotes that I've defined for this repository, that is the remote repositories that exist at other computers, right? And one of those is named origin, right? And this is set up by default. And it has a branch called variant docs. And mine is quote unquote behind variant docs. Update your branch by doing a pull, right? So this is not what we want, because if I tried to pull these changes in, then it would be trying to like inject these commits like in or around this commit, and we don't want that. And they both have a common history of being from this branch here. I don't know why it's not showing that, but okay, whatever. What we want to do is we want to completely clobber these two commits. We're like, we don't want these commits. I just want this commit. I want these changes. And to do that, you want to do a push just like you did before, but you want to say, I want to force push. I want to push whatever I have to the remote. I don't care what's over there. I want the remote to be the same as what I have. So that's a force push. Is it destructive action? Yes, I do want to destroy these two commits that are currently on the origin. So I'm going to force push. And bam, it's now updated. My origin and my local are now the same, and they're both referencing the new commit that I made. And so that is how you can update online API documentation, right? I solved a problem also with my content. Man, where did I even put this stuff? Gosh, I have way too many stuff open at the moment. Okay, here we go. So I hit refresh on this page for comparing, and now we see that I just have these docs. Forgive me, I just got another text really quickly. No. Okay. So yeah, that's basically the whole kind of workflow. You submit the pull request, you get feedback in response to those changes, you make whatever changes you need, and then you just have to remember to go back to whatever was the original commit before you started making changes, and you just right click and go to interactive rebase. So you make sure that you are on your branch that you're working on, and you interactively rebase on to the point in history that you want to start reapplying commits to, right? So that's how it works, right? A rebase is I want to take my commits, I want to step by step reapply them to another point in history on some other branch or on the same branch or anywhere you want, really. So yeah, that's how it works. And I don't know if you guys have any questions. I don't even think anyone's been watching this, so that's fun. Live streaming, yeah, no questions. I don't know. Oh, concurrent viewers too. Yay, there are people here. So yeah, wow, this was super long, but I kind of just went through the process, and I hope you guys found that enlightening. If you want to see more content, then feel free to let me know. I don't often have a chance to do tutorials in videos. I barely ever have a chance to do videos because I can only really do it when nobody else is around, unfortunately, and my wife happens to be out of town today. So if you want more content, just let me know, and I'll see if I can find a time to do it. It's a lot easier for me to build text tutorials and text-based stuff. I just need to clear out all this stuff. I don't need it anymore. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me directly on Discord, or you can send me emails to willnationsdev@gmail.com. I'm on Reddit if you want to PM me as willnationsdev. Discord is also willnationsdev. It's not okay. I don't know if it's gonna. Whatever. You can't see my name from it, but whatever. willnationsdev. That's me. So yeah, I hope you guys had fun. See you.